No. But what you're saying is if you're going to go to your state legislator in Ohio or Idaho or wherever, stop calling it chemtrails and say, I want an end to cloud seeding and high aerosol atmospheric spraying. You have to call it what it is if you want it to
Right.
stop. And even if they stop that, you're saying that regular airplanes flying through the right condensation and humidity amount up there are still going to be putting white mist in the sky. Even if you
Absolutely.
ban the aerosol spraying, the commercial flights, and
Hmm.
you're saying the high private jets up at 45, they're still going to be putting them in there, not because they're spraying chemicals on you,
Right.
but because that's actually ice particles, pretty much, right? Like
Yeah.
condensation. That's
All a
it.
person has to do is go down to like any body shop that paints cars after they've been in an accident and go over to their air compressor and ask the guy, "Oh, what's this little canister that's coming off your line right here?" And he'll go, "Oh, that's the water that pulls the water out of the air." What? Yeah, yeah, compressor is a condenser. Condensers pull water out of the air. We can't have water mixing with our paint. So if all these planes that we see in the sky are using compressed air, guess what they're spraying out the back? They're spraying out fine particulates of water. Fine particulates of water at 45,000 feet, where it's really fucking cold, turns to ice. What does ice look like? It looks like white little particles. So it's just like people just have to become, they just have to understand, like, let go of the fear, let your mind work a little bit. Understand, yes, there's pollutants. Pollutants are not good for us. But if you're going out there every day saying, "Oh, I'm being sprayed like a roach," but yet when you go out on certain days, you don't see any spraying. Well, they must have today off. It must be a holiday. No, the conditions are totally different. Use these things. Go to Jim Lee's website, look at all the things that, check out my live stream that I did with them. The live stream that has all of the things is why so serious. And it's spelled like serious clouds. And the whole, I thought that was cute. So, because he gives the four different websites that you can use, and you put the plugins and you see, and dude, I'm just telling you, for half a year, it's on the nose every time, like without fail. So
All right,
awesome.
Topher, awesome to catch up, man, in the new
Yeah,
year in the dead of winter. We're getting about 2 inches of snow outside right now. We're getting dumped on behind me.
yeah, we had snow flurries this morning, so I had to move all my firewood in. I spent all of Christmas chopping firewood, and it felt really good.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we'll have a great talk today. So you've got your new business out, which I'm really excited. You've got
Yeah.
your blackgoldbiochar.com people can go to.
Yes, sir.
Biochar is BIOCHAR, in case you're like me and can't spell that. So yeah. So it's blackgoldbiochar.com. And I'd love to get into biochar with you. And then later on, we're going to talk about you're really controversial right now. We're going to get into what are chemtrails versus aerosol disbursement and
Right.
all of that. So tell me about that, man. Like, so you've had a lot of people not following you, and I've had a lot of people saying, "What are you hanging out with Topher for? He's a chemtrail denier," and all that. Like, just because
Yeah.
you're asking some questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm into defining terms and defining terms correctly and using the correct lexicon. I mean, so a few years back, I was introduced to Jim Lee's work, and he runs climateviewer.org, and also I believe the website's historyofweathermodification.com, something like that. And, he was very controversial and triggering to me, but everything that he was telling me about that I was looking into was true. And so last year, I did the Pepsi challenge with him, and I was like, "Look, Jim, the chemtrails I see them all the time." And he goes, "Yeah, of course you see them, but they're not chemtrails." And I'm like, "Well, what is it that I'm seeing?" And he says, "Mostly what the streaks in the sky that you're seeing is pollution." And I'm like, "How can that be?" And I was going through all my, trutherness and, like, just really burying the lead with him. And he's like, and he knew a little bit of my history. One of my really good friends growing up, they actually ran the jet fuel company in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And for those of you that don't know, Fort Lauderdale, Florida is a very interesting place. It's just north of Miami, in South Florida, and there's a lot of executive air traffic there. But my friend actually sold jet fuel to all of them. His father
You
did.
mean like high flying Learjets, right? Like private
Yeah,
jets.
yeah, yeah. So, and then my very first dome client in Costa Rica, he flew Gulfstream 8s. So like I have insider baseball knowledge. Like I literally like I know these cats, right? And he said, there's 10 times the amount of we call them Learjets, but let's just call them private jets. There's 10x the amount of private jet flight that there was 30 years ago. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Because in Fort Lauderdale, when I was growing up close to 40 years ago, there was only one executive airport, and now there's eight. And and the person I knew that was selling the jet fuel is a very, very wealthy person now.
Now, do you,
what, what,
because I
what,
don't want to get into the jet fuel hoax because I already got
No,
Karen
but
being
I
all the
believe in
haters.
the jet fuel hoax.
But do
Because
you
by the
think the
way,
Lear, yeah, yeah, but the Lear
by the
jets,
way, no. So
but the
check it
Lear jets
out.
are not using compressed air, right? They're using actual gas or what?
No, they're using both. This is the
Same.
thing. Like people are always like there's like it's all or nothing. It's like no, it's like a hybrid car. It uses both gasoline and the gasoline generates electricity. It's just like in these jets. They use a little bit of fuel to get the compressor spooled up, the compressors spool up, and now they run on the compressed air. It's both. It's and both. It's not either or. Like this is what is so infuriating to me. So Jet Li, Jim Lee brings this to my attention. I look into it. It's true. There's at least out of South Florida, there's 8.5x times the amount of these small jets. Well, my client, who was a good friend of mine that I built for, like I had, very intimate conversations with him. He's like, yeah, we actually, all of us in the Lear jets, he was in I believe he was in a Gulfstream. He flew Gulfstream 7s and then Gulfstream 8s. Their cruising altitude's 42,000 feet.
Yeah, that's crazy
So
because commercials are at 30, 33, somewhere around there.
yeah, when they go long distances, they get up to 36. And so I've been studying hydrodynamics for 20 years, ever since coming across Schauberger. And when you start to get into hydrodynamics, and I've been into the plane construction and engineering ever since I was a little kid, when you look at the sky, just because you can supposedly see far, you're looking through layers and layers and layers of different pressure gradients. And the air that we look through is a fluid. When you're engineering something to move through air, you're actually engineering it to move through a very a non-dense fluid, but it's still a fluid. Okay. So when we're looking up in the sky, it's a layered cake. There's like layer after layer after layer. And Jim's like, look, the software we have now can show the different layers of where there's different barometric pressures and humidity. And we can pretty much flight track everything. And then I checked him on that. I was like, oh, there's no way the military is telling you what they're flying on. He's like, even without that, you can still see the majority of the flights and the things that are up there. You can see them. Like it's all the data is up there. And now with all the different layering that there is. And by the way, Jim Lee isn't perfect. He thinks we're on a ball, all these things. I get it. None of us are perfect. None of us have the whole thing. But specifically when it comes to chemtrails, he goes, you have friends in Tennessee. You have friends in Florida. They just passed this legislation. Have any of them said that the chemtrails have disappeared? And I'm like, no, they said it's the same. And he goes, why is that? And my wife and I have been studying law for 10 years now. It's because the term chemtrail is a non it's a non-starter. It doesn't mean anything. It was a word that was fed to us, by the same people that, are like that fed the term conspiracy theorists. It was a word fed to us so that we would be describing a phenomenon incorrectly. And when we describe that phenomenon incorrectly, and then we get all emotional about it, and then we try and like go and be an active agent of change, it doesn't do anything. It won't actually change our environment. And so he said, like, the on a from a lawful and legal perspective, there's three things that we're seeing. We're seeing high atmospheric aerosol dispersants. That's probably like this woman that you were talking about, that
Yeah, we'll
the
talk because
military.
they didn't hear us off screen. So there was this. If I can find the clip, I'll edit it in. She's like
Mhm.
she ordered supplies for like the Air Force, whatever, for the aerosol disbursement program. And it's the thing about the strontium, barium, and aluminum. That's what all the
Right.
chemtrail people know. You call it chemtrail. And she said, yeah, when I looked into it, these are the things I was ordering. So, but what you're saying is important. It's a nuance. You just said to me off camera, you said it's like saying all lights in the sky are aliens.
Right,
So
right.
that's what's saying chemtrail. So not every plane in the sky that makes a tail of shit that spreads out into a white mist is doing aerosol disbursement. That's the
Right.
right.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that the streaks in the sky are good. I've never said that. Most of the streaks in the sky that you see are pollution. And the thing that Jim also brings up is that they intentionally changed the jet fuel in 1996 to have barium, to have strontium, because when you look into the UN Agenda 20, Agenda 21, and then its addendum, Agenda 2030, when you look into it, and I have looked into it, I've literally read the white papers of the Agenda 21. The way human is designated is a biofilter. Like that's what humans are designated as. That's why so many poisons can be put in our environment, is because they're literally looking to our body to be the filter. So I'm not under any illusion. I'm not like a Pollyanna being like, oh, it's all, sunshine and puppy dogs. It's just like, let's define terms correctly. So when things are being sprayed at 40,000 feet plus, up way, way, way up there, that's a high atmospheric aerosol dispersant. Another thing is like, because we have so many private jets flying now, they're flying very, very high. Their average altitude of a Gulfstream 7 or a Gulfstream 8, they have Gulfstream 8s now. Their cruising altitude is 42,000 feet. Well, guess what, people? It's really cold out there. Now, I've been in construction for 20 years. I professionally paint buildings. What do I have to do when I have compressed air and I'm spraying paint onto something? I have to put this massive bypass filter on the compressed air before it gets to the paint to get rid of what? To get rid of water. Because when you compress air, guess what occurs? It sucks in all the atmospheric humidity into it and compresses that also. So, what do you think is happening when they're up there at very, very high altitudes and they're using compressed air as fuel? It's not hot exhaust like that. Like some of it's hot exhaust, but I'm of the mind, like you and Ross are, they're not using much fuel, but they are using compressed air.
They admit it.
When
That's not like I hate like people are like, people who okay, if you don't believe in the jet fuel hoax, fine. But even their manufacturing videos show you cartoons where they admit they're using compressed air. It's not even a conspiracy theory. It's like
they're
they
literally
say they're doing.
Victor Schauberger compression, like everything that Schauberger showed from the side cut of the trout, swimming in the water, and how the trout was sucked towards the forward. I watched these demo flights of the 777s and the 787s, and they were literally showing these things hovering. There's no way if that plane was using acceleration to have the Bernoulli principle of air going over the top of the wing to give lift. That's not what's happening. They can use that, but a lot of these massive planes now that are flying at these ultra high altitudes, they're literally being pulled forward because that I don't know the proper term. I don't want to miss what we call an engine. The only way that that engine can be propped so far forward ahead of the wing is if it's being used to pull and not push. Because if it was pushing, that thrust hitting the bottom of the wing would deform the wing.
Well, it's not
But
propulsion, it's like implosion technology. It's
that's
like,
exactly
yeah,
my point.
it's
That's the
like that root
pull.
that can this I can't remember this whatever Gurangi root. Once you push it, it's
Exactly.
impelling, not propelling.
And that's the thing I'm talking about is like I know all about implosion. I've literally built ram pumps as a profession, as a builder in the side of a mountain in Costa Rica. Like I've used implosive devices, and it's sucking. Suction has, if given the same amount of volume, suction has 40 times the power that explosion does, or pushing. So nature uses implosion all the time. Any of us that have impregnated a woman, you feel the moment you've impregnated her. Like it's a totally different thing than just rando sex. Like when a child is being made and that seed is planted, it's a suction. You feel like you're like, I don't know about you, Steve. I know you've had kids, but like it's a thing. Okay. That implosion is occurring. The energy all collapses in the field and boom, you have a lot of extra energy. So these planes, a lot of the planes that we're using, one, we have a lot more planes than we used to. Like just looking back into the early 90s, we have 3.5 times the amount of commercial flights that we
Yeah, I
did
think
in.
even four times more commercial flights, and then you're
Mhm.
saying 8 to 10 times more private
Yeah,
Learjet flights, and then the pollution is off the
exactly.
fucking charts as well.
And here's another thing. This is very close to my heart because I went to war in this in college, right? Where my family was from in the Appalachians in North Carolina, there was incredible acid rain. And in the Reagan administration, they put these scrubbers on the coal, on the coal plants, right? And they're like, oh, the scrubbers clean the air. They didn't do anything. They just caused the acid rain to go further downrange because all it did was rarefy the pollution. Well, so what we're looking at, the reason why the sky gets this albedo effect, okay, is because this pollution is more rarefied now. Okay, so
Albedo means whitening for people who aren't alchemical listening. The
yeah,
reason the sky turns to a white mist instead of blue is this.
yes.
Yeah.
And this has all been a big, big plan. And I don't think any of it's good, but the plan, like I read this straight from NASA. I don't believe NASA sends anything into space. They work on space. We live in space. For me to move my arms, I'm in space right now. So their space program is really like working on how to engineer the sky. And NASA, like flat out in all the big publications, Popular Mechanics, Popular Science, and Wired magazine in the early 2000s were like, "Oh, we're just going to store the water in the sky. We don't need to have these massive water tanks, on the ground anymore. We don't need that anymore. We're just going to store the water in the sky and when we need it in a certain area, we can drop it." Like flat out. I mean, that was in like mainstream USA publications that I read. Okay, so put it all together. There's more flights up there. Okay. The sky has been engineered. They are actively doing geoengineering. I'm a geoengineer. I build with Earth. I literally like take Earth, reshape it, and then make something out of it. Okay. As a geoengineer, I'm telling you, we're all always terraforming. Like this, we're on like terra firma is being terraformed. the water, the big thing ever since the commodities market came online in Chicago, where they put water on the commodities market, they've essentially commoditized space. Space as in this the volume, the rivers above us. I think it was Cliff High originally said in 2007 or 2008 with his WebBot project back then that he was like, yeah, I keep seeing in the internet space like this atmospheric rivers. Well, atmospheric rivers became a thing because the number one, geoengineering company in the world, NASA, was like, yeah, we're going to start putting rivers in the sky. Like, duh. And so if you have more humidity and more layers of humidity in the sky, because the number one geoengineering company in the world says, hey, we're going to put more humidity, more water in the sky. And then you have these planes that are flying, more planes flying through, emitting rarer and rarer condensation nuclei. Guess what you're going to get more and more and more of? You're going to get streaks in the sky. So let's call the streaks what they are. They're high atmosphere aerosol dispersants, which the military does. They do that. The majority of what you see up there is just pollution from air traffic. And then there's the third thing, which is the low flying cloud seeding, which we all know about. I mean, they've used that in agriculture forever. In fact, after the floods in Texas last year, I think Jim Lee immediately interviewed that was kind of sus to me that he interviewed the president of that cloud seeding company in mid Texas. And he was like, yeah, flat out. Yeah, we only put 5 pounds of silver iodide out there, but they did it in nanoparticulates. And nanoparticulates, guess what? They can spread very far, very fast, and really change things very fast.
And they don't come down, they stay up there. There's still shit up from volcanic eruptions like years ago that are still floating
Yeah,
around up there.
I literally broke my AI because I was bringing up the fact that hey, I literally my company makes essentially, bulk graphene. Biochar is pyrolyzed carbon. It is the Negretto phase of a reduction of an alchemical reduction. And when you get carbon all the way down and you make it to its most inert phase and you do it without oxygen, you're actually making it the primogenitor. You're making it the prima material because all life is attracted to it. It itself doesn't really have anything going on, but it has all these nano and micro diamonds within it. So, like, I don't know. I mean, I know you and I like to tip one back every once in a while. Whenever you have like a good whiskey or a good scotch that's been decanted in like a crystal vase, it tastes completely different than if you have, if it just comes out of like a plastic cup. And the reason why is that crystal, as the light travels through the crystal, it imprints the spirit, let's say, with a higher vibration. Well, biochar at a micro level has tons and tons of diamonds in it. And because it has such an incredibly high, it has the highest diamagnetic charge that there is, it's akin to water because water is also diamagnetic. So it's birds of a feather flock together. So you're essentially creating this housing for water that is also on a micro level structuring it with diamonds. It's like just like putting it in a diamond vase.
Well,
I would
that's
like to.
like why the biochar holds like 20% more water in the soil when you use biochar. Your
Well, it
soil,
actually
you don't have
holds
to
a lot
water it
more.
so much, right? Or is it even more than that, or what?
It holds a lot more than that. Like that's all we're allowed to legally talk about and say.
Is there a law about how
But
much
like
you can say? Yeah.
well, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that we have of things that we can't like prove because there's not like the terminology out there for it, right? So, um,
But that's what's going
when
on
it,
in the sky. So there are people saying that Topher Gardner is a chemtrail denier, and you're like, yes, he is. because chemtrail is a bullshit term, but you are not denying that they are spraying shit in our sky like silver iodide and barium, aluminum, strontium, maybe at aluminum. But but a lot of the planes we're seeing flying that are leaving trails, that just has to do with them flying through layers of like a humidity break, right? And it's
Lots of humidity because without a doubt, like when I use the software, that Jim shares and he shared with hundreds of thousands of people. This isn't like a one-to-one thing and I could be getting duped. Like anybody could use this software. Like, and it's on normal sites. It's not like, secret, dark web shit. It's like very easy to access and use. Literally, when the humidity is below a certain level, I see no chemtrails. Like not once.
right.
I've
And
done
you
this
can see it, and the software shows you even what altitude you will see them. And you just did
exactly.
it. You said you did it the other day, right? Like you
Yeah,
just did it the other day. Tell me about
I
that one.
do. I do it daily. I literally do it daily. Like it's my first thing. I pull up Windy. I have the plug-in for Windy, and Windy will show. Okay, it's called like a cloud. Like let me look it up right now. I have it right here.
It's
It's such
funny
a
because
cool.
Ross won't be having any of this. Like Ross is not going to be having any of this. He's totally down with like Jim Lee's controlled opposition, this and that. I'm on the other side of the fence where I'm hearing what you're saying. Like this, I've seen your videos where you're using this software, and it looks legit. Like regular airplanes are not spraying chemicals on you, but they are also leaving this whitening in the sky just because of the layer they're in. It's not like you said, not all lights in the sky are aliens, like
Yeah, yeah. It's
there
just
it's
about
it,
using.
yeah,
We
go ahead.
have to use correct terms. When we don't use correct terms, like when we use term like I've been kind of schooled up by a few alchemists and a few masters at their craft, and any alchemist and any master at their craft, they really really hate it when you use incorrect terms because life is specific. So just like I brought up the example earlier, Tennessee and Florida, they've passed no chemtrail legislation, but yet everybody sees chemtrails there. Why is that? Because there's no such thing as a chemtrail.
Right, so it's like passing a no flying unicorn legislation. There
Exactly.
isn't a chemtrail, but that doesn't mean there isn't cloud seeding. So they can still drop silver iodide and barium, aluminum, strontium,
Right.
because those aren't chemtrails. Those are cloud seeding and aerosol disbursement. What's the real term we should be using? High
Yeah,
altitude aerosol.
high altitude atmospheric aerosol dispersant. Like
So you're
perfect.
saying we should have legislation against silver iodide cloud seeding and high atmosphere aerosol disbursement, blah, blah, blah. But because we keep calling it conspiracy theory chemtrails, you can pass all the laws to ban chemtrails, but there's no such thing because we're not
Precisely.
legally calling it the right thing. That's what I think
Precisely.
people are confusing you with. They think you're claiming that nobody's spraying any shit up there, and that's not what you're saying at all.
No, but then I'm also like, your work was instrumental because you and Ross, when you did the whole thing with the jet fuel hoax, I know that to be absolutely true. Okay, so people want their cake and they want to eat it too. And I just want the truth. So I know most planes are using very little fuel and they're using compressed air. I have technical, actual expertise with running pressurized air systems. Okay. I know the biggest problem with pressurized air systems is small little water droplets. Okay. So we have 4x the amount of normal flights. We have 10x the amount of high altitude flying. They produce so much more water droplets than they did say in the 80s. Okay. And they're very little water droplets. We also have NASA, the biggest geoengineering company in the world, is essentially saying we're storing water in the atmosphere now. So we have water, 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 water. When we look up there, okay, we see like this albedo effect, this whitening of the sky, because guess what? There's more water vapor everywhere. And now we get into the fun part. I've been into Wilhelm Reich for over 20 years. I've literally built the big Gatling gun cloudbusters. I've done 8 hours of, live streaming with Martin Liedtke talking about the fascia that's on all this war heraldry. And I'm like, yes, they had orgone accumulation technology. Like, it's not just, oh, we're stronger because we're a bundle of sticks all bundled together. No, they've always had sound technology, and then they've had this ability to manipulate the ether. So when you start to get into orgone accumulator and you get into cloud busting and you get into actually, active orgone accumulators, like I've literally installed into cars and literally had cars in any system that actually makes contact or is within the field of the orgone accumulator, it goes to a higher state of order. It goes to a higher state of coherence. How is this possible with both biological things and mechanical things? That makes no sense. Like when you talk to most people, because most people want to be, it's either this or that. It's because what orgone actually is, it's the first phase of hydrogen. The first phase of hydrogen from a chemistry perspective is known as protium. What does protium do to water, everybody? If you start producing protium, guess what? It actually clears water vapor from the space. The people boiling vinegar outside, people using one of these big Gatling gun, you know,
So they're making
cloudbusters.
protium to clear the water vapors, so that's why the chemtrails are gone.
Precisely, because
That's
guess
what
what?
these Reich, the copper tubes you aim up there and boiling the
Yes,
vinegar. So there is no water vapors, which is we're calling retardedly then a chemtrail. Because
right.
that so when people put this in their yard and they say there's a mile space around, or half
Which I've
mile,
done.
and you're clearing it's like the vapors are there, but they clear. So there's like a
They
hole in
do
the sky
because
over your house, right?
it's just like our friend Eileen McCusick said, things of a higher coherence or things of a higher valence energy will always trump those things of a lower energy. And that is so true. Well, there's nothing of a higher energetic state than this orgone, this protium. The reason why
Which is
Wilhelm Reich,
chi and prana. That's really another name for
exactly.
chi and prana. Yeah, life
Yeah, yeah,
force.
you talked
It's
about
the
the
ether,
chrism.
really. It's pretty much the etheric
Well, it's
force,
the
but maybe
ether.
not
It's
really.
diff. It's literally the transition because now the big thing in everybody's mind is plasma, as it should be, because I think the plasma weapons are being in full force initiated. But plasma, a lot of times you're dealing with that transition zone from metamaterial to actual material. So whenever you're going through that transition phase of like, mind to matter or the metaphysical to the physical, you have this little transition zone. And in that transition zone, that's the nice place that a lot of these plasmas like to live. But what's fueling a lot of these plasmas is protium, because protium is the closest thing to plasmatic hydrogen. Oh, it is plasmatic hydrogen a lot of the time, is a better way of saying it. But it's literally the transition. Like I'm a big fan of Ken Wheeler's work, some of his work, and he once said this, and it brought me right back all the way to Walter Russell. If any of you have seen Walter Russell when he did the periodic table, he was just essentially like every element is just an octave of the previous element, in a spiral. And so he was able to make these predictions of all these elements that nobody knew about. Well, guess what? They're there because it's just he was looking at it from a musical perspective. Well, that means everything is essentially hydrogen. Matter is just condensed hydrogen. And then when you look into what light is a coaxial circuit. It's a perturbance. How did Tesla said? Light is a sound wave in the ether.
It's a vibrate a perturbance in the ether. It's a vibration that's
Right.
causing illumination or the appearance of it. You need to be able
Mhm.
to perceive light.
Right.
It's it's that dumb shit. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, hears it, doesn't make a sound. it never makes a sound anyway. It makes a vibration. And if you have
Right.
ears, then it makes a sound. But if you're
Right.
deaf in the same woods and the tree falls right on your head, it still didn't make a sound.
Yeah. And I was just getting into this with Owen Benjamin last night. Like the whole thing, he did this live stream that was brilliant. He said, and you like this. I hope I don't massacre it. Oh, oh, I am gonna massacre it. I have to look it up. It was something brilliant. It was like the rhythm is the pitch. And when he showed the like when you just have a heartbeat and then you accelerate the heartbeat till it gets really close, then it becomes like a note. Because a note is just a bunch of perturbatives put together, compression, rarefaction at a certain frequency range, and then our body transduces that into something either pleasant or non-pleasant, right? So light works the same way. It's just doing that on the ether side, but the light is inherent to that rarefied space. It's just that whenever something shakes in that space, oh, then light is emitted. Okay. Um, when it comes to plasmas and when it comes to orgone, what Wilhelm Reich figured out was okay, when quality is being engendered, there's more of this stuff. Like when a human has an orgasm, there's more orgone in the field. There's like that implosion that we were talking about earlier, where there's this collapse into the field and there's more energy. There's a higher qualitative state of being with that higher energy field, right? And so that and he was measuring it and he used his own term orgone. Now I mean I'm seeing like they did I got pictures from Dr. Mario Arce of my biochar with the black field microscopy stuff, the thing that the Bigglesons do. Dude, there's all the microzyma. Like in microzyma for you guys out there that is orgone. That is this light hydrogen. That is protium. That is these like little flickers of light that are going. Pew, pew, pew. It's like literally transition from the etheric phase to the material phase.
Yeah, we think of them
And
like bugs or something, but they're not. They're like the etheric. They're like
exactly.
they're like the metaphysical transitioning into the so-called physical
Yes.
via light, which is just a vibration in the ether. There's no difference between metaphysical and physical except for the vibratory rate and the person or the instrument that perceives it.
Mhm.
If you're blind, there's no light anyway, but you're still alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is no light.
Well, there's
Just,
you can't perceive it. And that's a big problem. It's like people because they can't perceive something, they're unwilling or even like when people like I can understand people pigeonholing everything and saying it's either black or white because to them then they can just X that out and not have because they don't have the capacity to actually think about it. So I have so much field experience with active orgone accumulators and active orgone accumulators, both helping mechanical things, machines, and organic things like plants and animals and humans. Okay. How is that? Okay. And by the way, with the mechanical things, at first, when I was first, putting these mojo cells in cars and dealing with Joe cells, we would do all these things to route the orgone until we figured out the orgone doesn't need to be routed. It creates a field. And what it's doing is, I just finally got the full gist of it after talking to Veda Austin. Is that because we see this with the biochar, it creates a field, it creates like a dome effect around it. And the reason why is it's structuring because of its high coherence, it creates a field of coherence. And if you have a mechanical device working within that field of coherence, guess what? That mechanical device is more coherent. If you have a human in that field, in that bubble of coherence, that human now is being more coherent. Everything is being worked upon, and now, like when people buy hydrogen water and stuff like that, I tell them like, don't do that because hydrogen is so small any vessel that you have your hydrogen in, it's going to move through it. Like you might have 10 minutes before the hydrogen, if it's not bound to something, is out. It's outie 5000, like it's gone. So protium's even smaller than that. Protium's even more etheric than that. And so it goes. So, you know, before I even knew any of this stuff, when it came to like when I really believed in chemtrails, I was like trying to figure out how I could have this like Gatling gun of, copper and organite pointed at the sky and like literally have it punch a hole. Like how is that possible? Well, then I had to ask myself, what am I punching the hole through? And Wilhelm Reich was emphatic. He's like, if you really want these things to be powerful, you have to like have them grounded into a source of water. And so what's happening essentially is the organite with the copper rules the planet of Venus. And this gets really, esoteric. You're creating, and then you have this lead that's going into, when I used them in Costa Rica, I would have them, we called them quebradas, which are little streams. You have this line of a conductor that you put in the stream, in the living stream. And if that living stream was like really alive, wherever you pushed, your Gatling gun, your orgone accumulator, it would redistribute that coherence in the direction. And all you're seeing up there when you're seeing haze is you're seeing a dead orgone. He called it dead orgone. I like the way Mitch, the orgone donor, says it. It's just incoherent water. That's what you're seeing up there. Like all the massive fog events. I don't know if Europe has been getting them, but over like the last year and a half, there's been totally engineered fog events all throughout the United States. And that's that incoherent water that's just kind of sitting and kind of just like nesting over everything. You create one of these very coherent fields, because the coherent field, when a human actually creates a coherent field, that your intention is being distributed. And guess what, y'all? You guys are the ones that are terraforming. Your intention is engineering your environment. And this is why I keep trying to tell people, if you run outside with your tail tucked between your legs and you're like, "Oh, they're doing it to us. They're spraying us like bugs. Oh, woe is me. I'm a victim and I'm going to use the wrong terminology." Guess what? You're going to get treated like a bug.
We know that
That's
because
what.
there was I can't remember her name. I had her book. Fuck, I can't remember the name of this book about pyramid. But there's is the she's like a Templar witch. They stopped the Baton Rouge hurricane. It came in, and then these witches built a stone circle and were in there fucking with intent. And this hurricane did a circle around Baton Rouge and went right back out into the Gulf. And it's like you're like, well, how did you do that? And that's what. And
Dude.
it's funny because copper is also diamagnetic as well, just like water.
Hmm.
For people who
and
don't know
and
what
biochar.
by the way, diamagnetic means it's repelled by a magnetic field and it doesn't retain magnetic properties when the external field is removed, like water, wood, copper. It's like when you drop a magnet into
Biochar.
copper is not magnetic, but when you drop a magnet into copper, it doesn't fall through. Like you've seen where you have a copper tube and you drop a little magnet through. It takes a while to get down. It's like oh, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
my
kind
work
of
my workbench is stainless steel, and I build all my orgone accumulators out of stainless steel because it's diamagnetic. So you always want to have a diamagnetic, and then like at the core of Moshe's Mojo cells, which are active orgone accumulators, we have bismuth, which is the most diamagnetic metal that we know of. And I was studying all of this, Steve, before I got into biochar. Like biochar is the most diamagnetic material on the planet. There's a theme here of diamagnetism.
more than bismuth even.
Three times
Wow. All
is,
right.
yeah, on the scale, like when you look at scales of diamagnetic things, water is like a 4, then you get bismuth is like a 16, biochar is like 50. And that's what I was getting into Jim Lee about with the science of this stuff. And like you were talking earlier about silver iodide can stay up in the air, so can biochar because of its diamagnetic property. They make it, they rarefy it, they make it into like a nano black. They make it so fine, and because it is so repulsive to magnetic currents, and this is why this is how I broke my AI. AI was trying to tell me that you can have electricity without magnetism. And I was like, no, no, no. I've seen for 50 years, they've been engineering magnetic fields just by using electrical currents. That's why it's called an electromagnetic field. It's an EM field. If you have one, you have the other. And they're like, no, again. And finally, I got it to relent after I showed it study after study after study. It's like, okay, you get it. So you have electrical currents. You always have electrical currents if you have temperature differential. Well, guess what? And this is where I was able to educate Jim Lee. I was like, dude, you're thinking it takes all this energy. You're trying to do like a one-to-one comparison of a watt to like effect. Have you ever heard of anything called a catalyst? A catalyst in chemistry is when you have something of very, very small volume and it creates a very, very big energetic reaction. I'm like, they're using things like silver iodide and they're using things like biochar in the form that they're using, and they're using it as nanographene because it is so diamagnetic. It makes it ultra sensitive to any electrical field. Well, getting back to Schauberger was the cat out there that was like, hey guys, if you have temperature differential, you have electricity. If you have any temperature differential at all, that's an electrical charge. And every computer, everybody that has a cell phone, you have something in your cell phone called a Peltier cooler or a thermoelectric cooler. And it's literally just two little lines of ceramic with two dissimilar metals sandwiched in beneath. It looks like a sandwich. And because one part of the phone is warmer than another part of the phone, guess what? You get a current. And that's how you keep the memory in your phone. That's how you keep the memory in your computer if there's like any, electricity gone away. I'm not talking about anything that's far out there. Thermoelectric coolers have been used forever. Okay, these thermoelectric coolers, nature uses it. Our body uses it. We don't get electricity from like plugging in. We get electricity because my peripherals, my hands are always going to be cooler than the core temperature of my body. Well, guess what? If I have locomotion, any Tai Chi person, any Qigong person, any martial artist will tell you, you can actually generate a higher electrical field in your body by moving the peripherals, and you're gaining the temperature differential. You're gaining the charge separation, which builds the chi in the body. There's nothing new under the sun here. So we always have charge potential. The higher you go in the sky, the greater the charge potential, the greater the voltage. So can we see now, can we all put it together? The biggest water storage in the world is the sky. The sky is a fluid. We have the biggest terraforming companies in the world out there that are actually saying, hey, we're going to store water in the sky and we're going to dump it where we want. It's been commoditized. Tell me what billion-dollar industry isn't rigged. And I'll sell you some swampland in Florida. Like literally every commodity is rigged, and water is the most valuable commodity that there is. So they've been storing it in the sky without letting the plebes know. They filter to the plebes, hey, that's a chemtrail. Ooh. And then everybody's running around dissipating, masturbating, and dissipating their energy by using the wrong terminology and wondering why nothing's changing while they're acting like a victim. None of that works. If you don't want to be treated like a plebe, stop acting like a plebe. Start like actually taking, like take your power back. Call it what it actually is. Anybody can go out there. You can go to Stanford EDU and type in geoengineering courses. And then you can look through the syllabi of their geoengineering courses. Does any in the syllabus, does any of it say, oh, chemtrailing 101? No, it says high atmospheric aerosol dispersant. It'll say the things that we've been talking about. Like use the correct terminology, use the correct terminology. Stop being in fear when it's a semi-humid day in the fluid above you and you see all these streaks in the sky. Because what I've been feeling, because one of my professions, my longest held profession, is deep tissue myofascial release. I am here to release trauma from people. You know how many clients I've had come in to and like come onto my massage table and like they're in tears because they feel like, you know, the Huns have just attacked them because there's some streaks in the sky.
But I was like
Like
that too, weren't you, man? I because I'm the same as everyone else. I'm like, I grew up in the fucking 80s and the sky was dark blue, like, and then all of a sudden it's white and misty.
I remember specifically when the sky changed, and it was exactly 1996 when they changed the jet fuel. But they changed the jet fuel for the express purpose to store water in the sky.
But they can also move that as a weapon, right? You do agree, like
Absolutely.
they're
There's a
using
whole
Nexrad and all that shit. They can move the shit
yeah,
and dump it on
they
you and
can
flood you, or they can wherever they
without a
want.
doubt. Geoengineering is literally that. Like all of that's happening. They are terraforming.
I think that's why you're catching shit, Topher, is because people don't understand the nuances of this. This is not like a retarded black and white discussion. There's like,
Well, the problem is people don't listen to the full conversation, and that's on them.
yeah, that's what
That's
I
on
kind of
them.
wanted to have today is break down the nuances and say,
If
yeah,
they only hear a sound bite and they don't take the time to listen to my 100,000 hours of interviews I've done over the last 10 years, and just look at the roster of people I've interviewed, like fuck them.
it's funny because like
Oh,
Sharon Daphne and Gabriel Lazar, right? They're also like orgone gifters, but they tried to talk about this. What's his name? Dane Wigington. The guy. He's like the
mhm.
main harp chemtrail guy. He seems controlled, and he wouldn't
I
let.
think so. I don't I feel like if anybody's controlled opposition, it's Dane
Yeah,
Williamson.
because he wouldn't even let them come and talk at his conference, and they went anyway. They were like, "Fuck you," and they were passing out flyers, and he had the cops like escort him off the property just for handing out flyers about their orgone busters, their tower busters and all that. Like he did not want organite and coherency. He did not want this in the conversation at all. He's like
Yeah,
chemtrails or nothing. It's chemtrails. It's they're
the
dumping barium, strontium, and illuminum on you to kill you, and harp and blah.
but they're not. This is the thing. It's like I'm not a fear merchant. In like where I get paid in life, like where I get remunerated in life, is in building resilience. I build the strongest dome structures that you can buy. Okay, I make the best soil in the world. That's what my biochar company does. Okay, we make the best soil. If you have really good soil and you have very strong structures that can handle hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes, you're doing pretty good. You're ahead of the game. And guess what? I break up trauma in people's bodies. With those things, the nothing will kill you faster than stress. So, what I've used in my consciousness as a way to understand how to navigate through the world is there's equity. God is fair. If I'm feeling fear, it's on me. Fear is the mind killer.
So do you
Fear is
think
the
that's like?
mind.
Do you
So
think that's like?
let me finish.
Yeah, go
Let me
on.
finish
Sorry. Yeah.
this. Fear is the mind killer. And I have felt fear looking up there, and then sadness, and gone through all the stages of, grief. But then I registered it. It was like, oh, no, no, no. This is an opportunity. This is like this is an actual opportunity for me. Like I said, I'm not a Pollyanna about this. I've read Agenda 21. I've read Agenda 2030. Literally, my client in Panama was General Bert Stubblebine. Like, I'm not a moron. In all of this, we always can opt for a higher level of coherence. If we're out there, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. Oh, and we're using even the wrong terminology. You're not the witch out there that's redirecting a hurricane. You're not my friend Frankie out there that takes his battle axe when a tornado is coming at his house and he anchors it into the ground and says, "You shall not pass," and it goes right around his house. You're literally being the bug that they say you should eat. And my whole stance in life is no, no, no. There is always a better way to, like, you see the problem, then you see if what you're thinking about the problem is actually what it is. And this year, 2025 for me was like a bunch of completion cycles. I've accomplished a lot. And like, guys, the only way you can accomplish things is if you can look at where you've made an error and correct it and come from a place of empowerment after that point.
That's what I
That's
was
the
going to
only
ask you. Is like the whole operation seems the fear of the cat. Like they want you listen to Dane
they want
Wigington
you
and scared
stressed.
shitless. I've never been afraid of chemtrails, to be honest with you. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do about
You're
it?
not afraid of anything.
Well, I don't give it. To me, I'm just like, it is what it is. That's my philosophy. You know what I mean? But I do understand, like, the human body is capable of transcending all of that shit anyway. And I'm certain we can all get together and steer a hurricane away without even copper tubes and Oregon Tower busters and all that. I don't even think we need
Definitely.
organite. I think we are organite. We're just like a walking organite ourselves. We're orgone producers. We are cheap. We're a giant cheap on a machine. So why do you need a little, cup made of organic and inorganic metals? Like you are one.
Well, a lot of times these things actually will hold, there's in a lot of magical rites, and I'm not saying that that's needed. I'm with you on that. But when you like take energy and actually create something, that's a little piece of you, and that will hold a charge of your intention.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it the intention or is it the little piece of shit you made, or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
the
And
intention you put into making that little piece of shit that made it work?
and this has been a big thing for me in the body work field is like what I've seen is when you biomimic, you actually then actually that's like you being like signaling your environment correctly. Like if you have the capacity to biomimic, when you biomimic, you're like, ah, okay. Oh, like the mirror, which is the environment, goes, ah, he gets it or she gets it. And when two people get it together, it's like when you're playing music and you really hit the jam and like you're now just in the cut. That's what happens when you biomimic with your environment. And organite, like whether you do an active organ accumulator like what I do, or you do like these hockey pucks like Mitch does, or whoever is making whatever, you're doing a biomimicry thing. You have a composite with metals and hydrocarbons. Guess what? That's the earth. And the metals as above, so below. Those metals and hydrocarbons that's in the earth actually creates a field above the thing, which is Father Sky.
And then so you
So
are making coherence up there so the random water vapors can't stick. Like just to give you said Vita Austin, we've seen the thing with the eggs, right? Where they take the one organic farm egg, which
yeah.
is like a dark orange yolk, like a really good yolk, and then they put
Hmm.
like 12 shitty ass yellowy cheap 1 penny chicken eggs around it. And sure
Hmm.
as fuck, the one good egg affects like at least 6 or 8 of the eggs around it. Like their yolks start changing, even though
Definitely.
those chickens were like running all over each other in a barn, shitting on each other, and they're probably half dead. But
Hmm.
and like you said, it always goes to the better form, the highest coherent form. So nature
Yeah.
works in a way where the most positive or beneficial to the whole field affects all the rest.
Right.
So
And
the
that's
whole
why stress and fear is the mind killer.
That's what I was going to
What
say. If you can make everyone the shitty egg, then you don't have a good egg to affect. That's why they try to kill. Martin Luther King. Every time the dark yoke comes along, they're like, kill him, because that
Mhm.
person is like affecting the other eggs. One guy can change everybody else
Mhm.
more than everyone else can change one guy.
Yeah, when you have the gift, like there is a thing. There was a reason why I chose the biocharisma moniker. One, it had biochar in it. But when I read the definition of charisma, that's a gift given by God. It's a gift. It's like literally a gift. And a real somebody that has real charisma is both loved and hated because they do polarize. Like we live in a realm of polarization. And it's just like I was talking about before. When there is polarization, there's differential. When there's differential, there's more energy. When everything becomes, monotonous, when it becomes like the same thing and there's no polarization, there's no energy, there's death. So the whole thing that the charismatic does is the charismatic creates a charge potential and you're gonna get shit. That's just what happens. But the people that are stuck in not actually going through long form thought and looking at a body of work, the folly is on them. That's their cross to bear.
That's pretty interesting, Topher, because the reason you have to get shit is in order to have a differential, you need the shit against your charge. They are
Exactly.
necessary. And I study the occult, and a lot of people are like, well, what's the point of all this occult study and esoteric study and mystery schools you do? And I'm like, because the mystery school teachings is when you realize that you have the gnosis and can do this, you stop praying to God and start actually praying to your higher self. You actually aren't praying to an external God. You're praying to your God higher self. Not saying that is God,
Mm.
but that's where the charge comes in. But where does the differential come in? Well, the people who are giving you shit, obviously, like where do you get the
Mhm.
charge differential? You need the shit charge against your charge. And I've found even with manifestation, I can't explain to people exactly why it's important to learn all this stuff, but I can tell you my life has changed dramatically since I did. And it's this, I think it's what you're talking about. It's this charge. And yeah,
Mhm.
you catch more shit. Obviously, the higher your personal charge becomes, then you have to have more differential around you. You probably catch more shit like you're doing. You're coming out saying chemtrails are bullshit, and now you're really getting attacked because you're
Well,
saying something
for me,
higher.
I knew it was going to happen. I mean, I told my wife, I was like, but I had to admit the truth. Like I had to. Like I was like, I'm not here to like keep the status quo going. I'm not here to like, because I was like like most people, I was into like I let go of the fear of chemtrails in like 2010. 2000, it was actually 2011. And oddly enough, just so you guys all out there know, I was literally working for the world's largest organic whole food supplement company at the time, and I was building on their farm in Costa Rica. So it's not like I'm hanging around with dipshits, okay? And I'm having talks with people that are really in the know. And so I'm like, I was able to let go of the fear of it back then. Because number one, part of what was driving my fear was also hidden in that the belief that I could run away from it. There was a reason why I lived internationally, like why I left the United States and I moved to the subcontinent of India and moved to Central Europe and moved to Central America. Like it wasn't because I was like all Mr. Clean and clear. Like I was running. I was running because I had fears in me. So and I'm looking at these streaks in the sky, and I was just praying at that moment. I was just praying about it because I was looking at them, and I did feel fear, and then just like just calmness overswept me. And then I remembered the whole NASA thing that I had been reading. And then I was talking with General Bert Stubblebine about it. And like he told, like he's the one who gave me the papers on like the actual legal designations of what different life forms are here. And oh, we're the filter. It's just like the same thing with the fluoride companies. We're using, the toothpaste to filter the fluoride. Like I was like, oh, I've heard this story before. Oh, the atmospheric rivers that Cliff High is talking about. It's just like everything starts making sense. And it's just like, okay, there is nothing to be afraid about. Stress and fear are the biggest killers that there are. No matter what, I find that people that get very, very mad and want to stay mad are the same people that are very, very fearful and they want to stay fearful. They've made fear their idol. Fear is like the only thing that they can feel. And so for me, I'm not here to support that.
It's like
I much rather
the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. How true is that statement?
seriously. Like I don't know where you're at with the Dune movies, especially the new ones. But like I like Frank Herbert. I loved reading Dune and I love the movies. It's so true. You get past the fear. Like I back in my new age days when I was in my 20s, like it was all about, becoming enlightened, right? And I remember asking this, guru in India. I was like, "How do you know you're enlightened?" And he said, "You can't be perturbed." It was that simple. You're unperturbable. And I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, that's how it is. I'm more calm too. I used to not be like, I used to be one of those truthers like screaming at me, you better wake up, we're all gonna fucking die. Like I was one of those guys. Now I don't really give a shit because I'm like, I'm not afraid of it. It's like when you see those videos where like three lions are fucking with a honey badger and the honey badger doesn't attack them or run. It just turns around. It's like, you want some of this shit or what? It's
That's
not
right.
angry though. It doesn't like attack them all and try to eat the lions. It just turns around. It's like, I'm not going to run. You fuckers
That's
bite me.
right.
I'm going to bite you in the fucking balls. But, you want to fuck with this? Let's have it. And,
I
and you're
love
like,
that.
how, and then lions back away every time. And that's how I think
Hmm.
we are too. We all think we need to fight the establishment. I'm like, you don't need to fight them. You just need to stand your ground. Like you said, you don't need to run to Costa Rica. You
Hmm.
just need to say, no, I'm staying right here. I'm not letting you push me out of here. I'm not running from you. You want to fuck with me, fuck with me, but I'm not going to attack you over it.
Hmm.
That's where you get this peace and feeling. And the old mystics have the same that you're like, you can kill me, but I'm immortal. So I'm not even afraid of like, that's what everyone's afraid of is like, why are you afraid of chemtrails? They're trying to kill us. And you're like,
I'm
well,
I can't be killed. Like I can't be
well,
killed.
you're going to die anyway. You're like, it's either Twinkies or, what you're to the booze. You're going to die anyway. So why would you want to spend the time you are alive running around scared shitless, hiding in a hole like a fucking groundhog, who's afraid of the sun? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, come on, man. Like, just stand your ground, say no, and that's that. I'm not actually like I've not been afraid of the chemtrails, but it's interesting now to get into it because I was also thinking, well, every commercial airplane is seek the pilots flicking the button,
Yeah.
but like you're saying, when they go through these coherent fields, because people say, oh, the plane's flying over, and then we see them turn it off, and then over there it turns it on again. They think like a guy's like turning the button on, but you're saying it's hitting a part of the atmosphere where there's what not a humidity differential, or maybe someone has an orgone buster below, or
Well, like
coherent field.
all you ever have to do is go to any shoreline in the world, and you'll see some days the water is, placid, and then you'll see other days there's like, gentle ripples. Other days there's more bigger. I started this whole conversation out with it's the same thing in the sky, you just can't see it. So like you'll see a chemtrail that's on, off, on, off. It looks like a binary signal, like Morse code in the sky. And it's literally because there's an invisible wave in the sky. If there's waves on the ocean, there's waves in the sky. Remember, the air that you're breathing is a fluid. You can talk to any fluid engineer. I, as a little kid, was going to become an aeronautical engineer. My grandfather is a nuclear physicist. Like, this is like real science. This isn't pseudoscience. Like when you're dealing, and when I was building domes for people, I was telling them I was literally building them a submarine because we had 100% humidity. And for most people that were moving from California or arid places, I was like, guys, you're moving into a whole new world here. You have no idea what you're moving to the rainforest. You live in water. You're becoming a mermaid or a merman right now. I'm building you a submarine. I'm not building you a house. So like water's been on my mind. Fluids have been on my mind for quite a long time. In our atmosphere, it's just a rarefied fluid. That's what it is. That's and so when you look up there, just because you can't see it, it's just like a radio wave. Oh, I don't see the Bluetooth signal coming to my phone. It must not exist. Like, have a little bit of maturity. There's a lot of things that you can't see. It's not some like pilot switching things on, off, on, off, on, off. And the biggest thing of the people that get really mad about this, like I've never claimed that they don't do fuel dumps because I have a family full of pilots. They've sometimes if they have to cut a flight short and they're coming to land, they don't engineer the planes to land with a lot of weight. They engineer them to take off with a lot of weight.
Is it true then they dump the fuel because if they crash land, like the fucker will blow up or what? Why do they dump the
It's
fuel?
very simple. The tires can't handle it.
Oh, it's the weight of landing. Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard they dump it in case they crash land, like it'll blow up like a bomb.
That might be a consideration, but the different dudes that like I had a client of mine for I could just call him a friend. He started off as a client. He worked on like all the landing gear on these planes and things like that at Fort Lauderdale International Airport. And a lot of people don't think, they change the tires on those things a lot.
I've always looked at I've always looked at those three little dodgy tires anyway in an airplane. You're like, how the fuck is this thing landing on? It's like 60 Mexicans in a truck. You're like, how is
Seriously,
this landing on
seriously.
those little tires?
So you and I are in the same ilk where we don't believe like they're really, using as much fuel as they were. If they were using that much fuel, none of these things would ever take off. But the little bit, like let's say they have, 1,000 gallons on board, and they're coming to land. 1,000 gallons is like 70,000 pounds. That's a lot of payload. And so they have to dump it. That's the only
Because
way
it's
that
in
they're
there when they
landing.
take off, but driving is different than coming down like boom. There's a big
Exactly.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why they have to really slow down a lot of flights. And I think that explains a lot of things because they have to slow down flights so that they can get rid of fuel a lot of times so that they can actually like, get to an area, especially if they're landing in areas where there's a lot of residential, like where there's a lot of people. They just can't be dumping fuel all the time.
Yeah, yeah, you
But
can't dump them on their house. It also explains why it takes a plane so fucking long to take off. You're like, how long
yes.
does it take with two or four jet engines to hit
Mhm.
220? I think 220 is like I don't know what the speed is to get lift,
I
but
think it's 180.
right.
The commercial jetliners is 180.
It also depends on the humidity and the particles in the air because I
Yeah.
went to Phoenix one year where it was 120 degrees and they
Hmm.
shut the airport down for 2 days because planes couldn't even get lift. There wasn't enough particulate to,
Hmm.
for the wings to get lift. But I've wondered, like, how does it take four jets this long to take off down a runway? Like, why do we have to drive down a runway all that length? But that makes sense if the fuel is like really heavy.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
But
It's
there's
and
no fucking way there's an Olympic swimming size pool. I'm sorry. Karen B has put out some good arguments that they can fit all that in the wings and in the central tank. I just am not buying it.
No, they can't. Like I'll just tell you from an engineering perspective. Like I deal with the, I deal with weights and stresses and loads over distance,
There's the
right?
weight distribution as well. They would be sloshing around. Like, I just can't buy it, man.
Plus, anybody, if you just want to have any idea, just like look at the hydraulics. You know, if you sit behind the wing, if like you're in one of those exit seats that's just like right over the wing or right behind the wing, and you watch the hydraulics of the flaps, those hydraulics have to go somewhere.
Yeah,
And when
there's
you look
supposed
at
to be
that,
fucking gas in there. You're like, those have to be empty chambers. They can't be filled with gas.
yeah, yeah,
With
it's
wires,
no,
electrical wires in a gas tank. Like, no retard would build electrical flap wires in the middle of a gas tank.
nope, not at all. And they get so much static on it. That's another thing with these things. Like when you have a metal tube flying through a fluid, a fluid that has all these other particulates up there, you get a lot of static charge. So imagine all that static charge was out there on the tips. No, sorry.
Yeah, I just can't buy it, Topher, man. I'm staying with the jet fuel hoax.
There's no way they could afford it. All you have to do is the math on the money. All you have to do is the math on the money. It's just like them lying about the population of the world. There have been so many, none of us have been living during a time where people were honest about things. So they've lied about the population forever because the more social security numbers that are out there, the more fake money that could be made. This all the securitized debt goes back to the sign of nature. And I just know the money. I know the money. Like I'm telling you, like I was friends with the dude that owned a jet fuel company for private jets and in small aircraft.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. This actually brings me back to a question I wanted to ask you. So, when you say there's a lot more pollutants in the air now than there used to be, I misunderstood. When you say pollutants, do you mean ground pollutants going up, particulate matter, or do you mean the airplanes themselves leaving pollution? Because if they
But
are running on compressed air mostly, the planes shouldn't be leaving pollution.
no, there's still a remnant.
Of what?
So
The
when
gas, you mean?
yeah, no, what we're seeing is unstructured water.
Yeah, I understand. That's what you're saying when you structure it with the copper tubes of the orgonite cannons and the tower
Mhm.
busters, it structures the air up there so the particulates aren't like they don't stick around in a weird
Mhm.
mist. But
Right.
when you say there's air pollution up there, are you saying from airplanes or more ground pollution
Both.
particulates? Both, right?
Both. I brought up the example of them putting scrubbers on the coal mines in North Carolina. And all that did was make the pollution more rarefied and pushed it further downstream. It didn't get rid of it. So right now, when we see cars and we say, "Oh, cars are so much more efficient," the average car's engine is only running at 17% efficiency. That means 83% of the hydrocarbons that are running through it. Guess what? Guess where they end up in the air? We have a burgeoning country called China that has more cars in it than the United States does. That wasn't the way it was 30 years ago. Like there's other economies. The BRICS countries are coming online. They're young, dumb, and full of cum. They want all of the niceties that the Europeans and the North Americans have had. They want it all, and they're going for it. Well, guess what that does? It's not the United States or Denmark that's out there long lining the entire ocean. I'm telling you, it's not. It's
It is
like
true, dude. Like the what we used to call the third world, that's China, like that in India.
yeah,
So the third world is now the first world. They're not even second world. They're like up in first. So I totally get you. Like as pollutant as the USA and little Denmark with 5 million people, imagine fucking China and India. They're now first world technology, of course.
dude. And the beautiful thing in my life is my exposure. So like because I've been able to work with very, very high-end clientele that, didn't really have boundaries to travel. and that were of a certain age, they told me what China was like 40 years ago relative to what it is now. And they're like, it's unrecognizable. Like it is not the same country, like at all. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Because I have never had any desire to go to Asia. My stepmother was from Thailand, and I grew up with the Thai community in South Florida, and it was just like growing up with the Latinos in South Florida. It was just like, oh, been there, done that. Like, I don't really need to re-experience that. So, like, in listening to my stepmother talk about what it's like going back to the South, like going to Thailand and going even further down, they don't recognize these countries anymore. They're so polluted. They're so over the top, like, Dubai, like all these countries are like whatever the pinnacle, at least I'll speak from a North American perspective, was in our industriousness. They're like, we're the big swinging D right now. Look at what we can do. Look at what we're creating. And we have like 10 times the amount of people you do. So, bye bye.
Yeah, it
Dude,
is. I
all
mean,
the
I've been around Asia I'd spent a year traveling Southeast Asia. I didn't go to China, but I've been to Saigon. I've been to Thailand 5 times. Like in the countryside, it's cool, but their cities are even bigger and filthier and more crowded than our Western. And they
oof.
are westernized. Like they're just fucking filth. You blow your nose at the end of the day and there's black soot shit coming out onto your tissue paper. It's pretty bad.
I couldn't believe I like I was 13, so I'm dating myself. That was 36 years ago. Being, flying into Thailand, I couldn't breathe back then. Like, dude, can't breathe. No, no.
It's
Like,
funny because remember, like during COVID, they were suddenly there weren't chemtrails. I don't even want to use you. I don't even want to use the word anymore. You've made me feel dirty saying it, but like suddenly there weren't these chemtrails, right? And
yeah.
and then we were like, oh, see, because of COVID, the chemtrail pilots are all grounded too, and they're home with masks. And you're like, or there's just not so much pollution in the air because they said like LA,
Precisely.
they said like the smog went away over LA, which is unheard of.
Dude, I first saw it during 9/11. Like after 9/12, 9/13, 9/14, there was no air traffic in the United States, right? Or there wasn't commercial air traffic. And we had a really, because before that event occurred, there was a hurricane going up the eastern seaboard, right? And usually hurricanes, when they go by, they like suck all the bad weather. Like all of us Floridians, we always love when a hurricane just barely misses us because we know afterwards we're going to have a bunch of days of really nice weather, of like really clear skies. And dude, it was so bright and hot, after, on 9/12, 9/13, and 9/14, at least on the eastern seaboard of the United States, it was like it was really wonderful. If everybody hadn't been freaking out about that event, that would have been like, a real party.
It's funny because there's the hurricane, the eye of the hurricane is like that. Then the rest of the
Mhm.
hurricane, and then it's like the eye of the hurricane after it's beautiful after a hurricane.
We loved it in Florida because the only time people were ever nice to each other was after a hurricane.
Yeah, because they all got to get together. That's because they're all fucked. They're actually
Well,
great because people come together. Yeah,
it changes the energetics. It's awesome because once people in urban settings, they get like, you'll never find a more alone person than somebody that's in like a real urban setting because nobody like trusts each other. But like in South Florida, it was always weird because it was urban because we had all these transplants from the Northeast, and they were all like, we were all kind of tightly packed, but yet we still had enough land and nature to kind of get about and move about. So it was like this in between zone, but everybody was like a transient from somewhere else. And it was just like one of these things when a big storm or a catastrophe would come in, you kind of understand what's real. And all that's real at the end of the day is relationships. And so, like after a hurricane comes through and there's no electricity for a couple weeks, and you got your relationships with your neighbors. Hey, you got a barbecue. Hey, you got some frozen meat, and and it ends up becoming it's awesome. It's awesome.
I mean, it's funny you say that, Topher, because yeah, we don't even know our neighbors I've been living 10 years now. I don't even know the three people's names upstairs. We've said hi in the hallway about 16,000 times now.
Yeah.
But when a hurricane comes, yeah, like you're saying, I'd jump in the water to rescue the chick's cat or dog or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't even know her name.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to think like because we're all living like this, that these disasters are getting more and more for
Mhm.
exactly that to say you fuckers need to learn to talk to each other. Like we need to give you a reason to talk to each other. And you in here you go.
Mhm.
Fuck you all. Let's see if you get together now. I think we're perpetuating a lot of this. Whereas
Yeah.
everyone else will say, no, it's the geoengineering. I know they are geoengineering. They are steering weather with these NexRad and Doppler towers. These
Mhm.
Doppler towers are fucked up. But I do think the realm itself, the more we get away from each other, the more it's going to give us obstacles to overcome. It's the
Yeah.
hermetic principle, you know. I think there's
Yeah.
something to that.
It totally is. I mean, there's a reason why they spend so much money getting people to watch sports ball and get people in these massive concert venues. Because if each one of us is our own orgone accumulator and orgone generator and transducer, what happens when like if you had a mechanical one and you get a bunch of them in a specific geometry, that's called an array. And an array can have exponential amount of energy transmitted or induced from it than just a single one can. And the people that are doing the social engineering know that. So that's why they engineer the majority of like the social gatherings space, especially in an array configuration, to be a low vibration.
I think
Yeah.
so too. Yeah, just like we talked about with the eggs. They're trying to make more bad eggs. But so
Yes.
what you're saying with the coherence, so all these people like Mitch, the orgone donor, Mitch Joseph, and Sharon Daphne and Gabriel. So when they're planting all these organite tower busters and shit all around here, and they're saying there's no longer chemtrails in the sky at all, they're saying that because I looked at these for this interview, they're talking about these videos where like they're saying holographic airplanes spraying chemtrails are turning into orbs, right? You know that
Mhm.
story.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I went back today and just looked on YouTube at like 20 orb airplane holographic videos. To me,
Yeah,
it just looks like bad digital graphics of the camera.
exactly.
I can see that's just the light off the two engines and the back tail wing. I don't
Right,
see holographic airplanes. I see your camera having a digital problem.
right, right.
You know what I mean? So, but what's going on? So you're saying there's just the water vapor can't stick together because the organite is making the air or the waters above coherent. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
you're actually because I mean we could get really woo because
Yeah, go for
once
it.
again,
Let's get into it, man. This space
so
busters, man. Let's go for it.
so you know there is this principle of Father Sky and Mother Earth. Okay, when you create this orgone accumulator or I call it, the ones that I work with are an active orgone accumulator, and we actually use live water. Like I've spent a ton of time structuring water. And this is why, Veda and I get along so well.
Can you explain to people who don't know like structured versus unstructured, just in a simple term? Not everyone knows
Well,
what you mean.
well, water, the best way to think of it, we were just talking about humans are antennas. Water is a fluid antenna. The relationship of hydrogen to oxygen, there's a lot of different, we'll call it the fluid relationship of hydrogen to oxygen is what we know of as water. And you have different people talking about the different molecular components to it. Let's just keep it really simple. However, hydrogen and oxygen like to relate to each other, they will create a fluid, and we experience that fluid as the liquid that we call water. Okay. Now, because the individuated aspects of hydrogen to oxygen are these antennas, they're constantly receptive. In astrology or in alchemy, we call it mutable. So when you think of mutable, it means like if I was to pour water into this vessel, the water will take the shape of this vessel. Now, did the water itself change? No, it just is malleable. It took the form of whatever it's in, right? Well, it does that from a time perspective too. So when water is exposed to a bunch of people being fearful about something, or a bunch of people, not taking responsibility, or a bunch of things that are synthetic that are X, Y, or Z, right? The water, because just a bunch of antennas, it will receive that information and store the information. And if it's, say 51% on the incoherent side, that's unstructured water. All right. Because you could show, like, whether it's Masaru Emoto or Veda or other experimenters, you just have one little bit of coherent water and it structures all the rest of it. So structured water is when the antenna geometry of the hydrogen to oxygen becomes optimal. It's just that easy. So like I build houses, I build domes. So like if I get the truss geometry just right, then it can support more load. If I optimize the geometry, voila, that optimal geometry, it's kind of funny. We're talking about water and a dome is just a bubble. So if I optimize the geometry, I can handle almost an infinite load. It's the same thing with water. It's exactly the same thing. It's just like, oh, I'm in my right geometry. I am now coherent.
So is it
And
like
in
with
this,
the domes, like if you had two straight pillars, they couldn't hold a certain amount of weight, but as soon as you bend them, they can hold like 10 times the truss weight, like the load, right? It's
absolutely.
is that how it is? Like the same two
Mhm.
pillars bent can suddenly hold 10 times more weight on top.
Right, right. And the thing is like when you just nature, the reason why nature uses curves, and this goes to the whole water analogy, is because when you just have straight lines, whenever you get a shear force, which is where the energy is moving from right to left or front to back on something, if you just have straight lines going up like pillars and then you have a lintel going across, now you get parallelograms. And so nature's like, oh, that's inefficient. Nature is extremely efficient. Nature's like, no, 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 I want to be efficient. I want to last. I want to survive. So I'll go, oh, I'll just connect these two and be curvy linear. And now when I get shear forces, I'm just going to move as one. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. And so when we're making coherent water, we're essentially just making the water happy because it's like, have you ever like gotten into like a health streak where like you start eating right, you start exercising and stretching and like doing the things, and then all of a sudden you just wake up one day and you feel good. You're like, oh, I didn't know. I feel like 20 years younger or whatever, And you're like, oh man. And that's all we're doing to water when we put it in these vessels and we send coherent harmonics, which you'll enjoy, through the water. Some might call it a resonant. And by resonance, we're defining resonance as your output energy greatly exceeds your input energy. Because it's like you're catalyzing the fluid, this fluid antenna, with something that resonates, and then the water just starts to produce like these little nano bubbles, these little nanodomes. And then with that charge, that coherence from all of those nano bubbles, then actually it's like champagne for the environment. And it's like, let's party. And everything just like gets more coherent. Because no matter what, we've already established we all live in water. We all live in a pool of water. We're breathing a pool of water. So when you affect water in a very specific way, just in like an isolated case, you're actually not just affecting that because it's an antenna, it's a receiver transceiver. So it's now distributing that signal everywhere else. And it has a given area, but it still does a lot of work.
What do you think about hydrogen, oxygen, as we're taught on the periodic table of elements? Because Steve Young and I have been talking about, he's doing an alchemical revamp of the whole periodic table in alchemy.
Great.
Yeah, so Stevie's doing that, and I've been talking to Beth Martins because I don't want to digress here, but there's a big kick about should you be drinking out of copper vessels, or is copper poisonous, or this and that. And there's in the
Uh-huh.
alternative health field, and Stevie and I are talking about the alchemical copper, which is malleability, electrical conductivity. That's different than the metal called copper or copper oxide.
Right.
And the studies they use to say you're taking copper, I agree. I wouldn't take a copper vessel and a razor and start shaving copper shavings and eating them, although your
Mhm.
parasites would take care of that. But is the copper vessel leaching metal copper into your water, or is it giving water the alchemical property of malleability and electroconductivity? And it's okay to drink out of copper and wear a copper bracelet. This is a whole another weird thing.
Mhm.
But you know what I'm saying?
I
There's a
I
big
think it's
difference.
both.
Is there really such a thing as atomic oxygen and hydrogen? You know what I'm saying? H2O as we're, what's your take on that?
I'm kind of with Tom Cowan in the sense that, I call him a particleist, like a racist. He's against particles. And so I kind of with him. He's definitely a particleist because, and I think he's right. Once again, getting back to the whole Walter Russell way of looking at things, I'm with Walter Russell. Like I think we're living in a hologram. And it's not the same thing to say we're living in a simulation. We're living in a hologram, meaning everything is comprised of light. Everything that we experience. And like Ken Wheeler shows, is that perturbation in the ether, when you have two perturbations that overlap each other, they appear, this is the key word, they appear to create a solid. Now, I think we live within a field of these perturbations. I don't think. I know we live in a field of these perturbations. And so all these perturbations that are occurring, you have the certain beings that are their own light emitters. Those would be the people that are considered to be, you know, coherent. Those would be the people that would be considered to be like
Charismatics.
charismatics. And then you have the people that aren't their own light emitters that are absorbing light from their surroundings all the time. It's like the difference between leaders and followers, blah, blah, blah. So like that energetic componentry is such would mean that matter is just all the same thing at different complexities. It's just more and more perturbations that are agglomerating to each other. So something like uranium 234 is a lot more perturbations overlapping a specific area relative to say protium, like we spoke about, which is like the first beginnings of hydrogen, the first beginnings of matter. So I'm on the Walter Russell tip. That's where I'm at with what particles are. And I just released my interview with Steve Young, and he and I seem to be very close in
Oh,
that
I want to
regard
see
with
that.
it.
I haven't seen you and Stevie talk. Yeah, I'd like to. I love to see that, man. Where's that released on? I'd
It's
like.
on it's on
It's on YouTube or
BioCharisma.
yeah. All right, I'll check that out. Yeah, that's because
No,
we're
it's not.
talking a lot
I
about that too, man. We're like, it's not protons, neutrons, like that. There's something wrong with the periodic table of elements, but they're actually elementals.
Mhm,
So in a way, they kind of tell you half truth. They are different frequencies or harmonics of elementals,
definitely.
but they're different. Like, yeah, they're not, electron. This one lost an electron, and now you know what I mean. They're like, when you take this and it loses 6 electrons, it becomes this. Like, no, I don't think so.
No, no, not at all. And yeah, so that's where I'm at because I think the world appears really solid and it appears really consistent. Like it appears that way. But appearances are temporal, and we happen to be in the temporal realm. And so things are actually I had the great luck. I was in Gibraltar in 2014 and I met the head physicist for the University of Sweden. He was giving a talk on, then it was the 3G cell phone network. And his whole presentation was about interference patterns. Like I was hearing from the dude, right? It was incredible. And what they had us do in the conference room, there was like 60 of us in the conference room. And when we were walking in, we had to give them our cell phone, and which like people were really reluctant to do, but it was part of the demonstration. And what he ended up demonstrating was he goes, okay, this is the way they test cell phones, because he worked for he like the University of Sweden did a lot of testing for Nokia. And he goes, when they're looking to see whether or not a cell phone is like fit to like, be out in the public, this is the way they test it. And it was like this box, right? And it looked like a little mini Faraday cage. And it would have like the see-through polycarbonate with like the silver mesh around it and everything like that. And he asked somebody to like, volunteer. So I volunteered and he gave me his number. It was his phone in there. And so my cell phone, I was on the other side of the conference room and I ring his phone and it with the box closed, it wouldn't ring. He opens the front of the box. And so there's nothing like when you were looking at the screen of like what EMF is coming off of this 3G phone. There was like no EMF coming off of it. Nothing harmful at least. No ionizing radiation. And then so he opens the front and then I call it again and then the whole thing starts lighting up like a Christmas tree. And so what he said was when they test it, they don't actually ever test the phones when they're actually receiving or transceiving a signal. They always just put the phone in there kind of inert and test it to see if it's giving off anything. And then we put my phone in there with his phone. And then I forget who there was somebody else that like essentially like chatted us both up, and then like all of the ionizing radiation on the screen came up. It was nuts. And he was showing us is like, okay, what the actual experience out in the field is we all have these devices and all these towers are out in the field and their clock speed is all a little bit different. And so the signal, even though the signal might be the same, the way it's received and then transceived is all a little bit different. So what that does is it creates these electromagnetic fields that are just not they're just slightly dissonant. And when they come across each other, they create these interference pockets. And in those interference pockets is where you have the ionizing radiation. And as he was saying this, I was like, dude, that was like written 4,000 years ago in the Rig Veda. That's exactly how they explain, you know, like this creation. Like they're like literally like your consciousness is overlapping other people's consciousness, and then the Venn diagram of your little reality bubble relative to another's reality bubble is creation.
Well, that's great. Like the biochar that you're making, that's another thing it does because it's diamagnetic. So it's repelled by a magnetic field, or rather, it can repel a magnetic field.
Yes,
So harmful electromagnetic radiation, you could make like bricks or paint out of biochar and it
we
will
have.
repel any kind of magnetic. I heard, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Lindsay Harris, Tomb of Illumination. Do you know Lindsay Harris?
I've 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 listened to a
I
couple
put him in
things.
the
So
end of Scamtarctica, but he said
yeah,
we shouldn't call it an electromagnet. I think it's him. Maybe I'm wrong. He said we shouldn't call it an electromagnetic field. We should call it a magnetoelectric field. He said it's reversed.
Yes.
But anyway, do you agree with that? But anyway, so the
Yes, I do.
biochar, it can repel harmful magneto electro radiation because it
Mhm.
repels magnetism, right?
Yeah, it reflects
Fields
it.
reflects it, yeah. So
Yeah.
electromagnetic field must be magnetic. So
Hmm.
harmful electromagnetic radiation, meaning forces coming out of it, would be repelled by the biochar.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's like, when you look at child rearing, they say the number one thing that, is important for a well-adjusted child is that they feel security, right? And so, like, you and I have mass. Like, my mass is like around 200 pounds, right? Imagine, and we get affected by these EMFs, like, we get affected by all these frequency ranges. Well, what makes soil good soil is the fact that it has these bacteria in it, and these bacteria do all the alchemist work. They're the ones that convert, say calcium into nitrogen, or nitrogen into gold, or gold into platinum. These little microorganisms are the alchemists. They're the OG alchemists, and they need a safe environment. And so when you don't have carbon in your soil, and you don't have highly diamagnetic carbon in your soil, they're susceptible to all of this ionizing radiation and magnetoelectric field, as you would say, that even us humans who have mass, like, we get affected by it. Could you imagine what this little thing that has next to no mass? A wave, like a little wave to us is like a tsunami to them, right? And so what we're seeing is a lot of people's gut flora and gut fauna in areas that have 5G. They literally like lose their gut bacteria. Like, that's something I'm doing right now in my family, is we're repopulating our gut with different types of gut bacteria, because we're essentially being sterilized from all the 5G signals, right?
What are you doing for that? Like yogurt and stuff? How are you putting that in there?
Yeah, yeah, very specific strains of yogurt. So that, and then also doing all the probiotics in all the ferments.
Because
So
biotic means life. That's what's funny when people take antibiotics. The word
yeah,
biotic means life. So you're like, you're going to take anti-life as
right.
a health cure? Like, what do you? What?
Yeah,
So that's why the biochar then. So biochar cleans water, and it
yes.
attracts healthy microbes.
Yes, and it's so stable. The difference between, the biggest question I get, what's the difference between biochar and charcoal, is biochar is stable. So going back to that child analogy, children need safety and security, and they need consistency, right? If they have those three things, then their own ego can form, and they can come into a fullness of being, because they have this stable setting. The same thing with the soil, is that with the biochar, because we pyrolyze it, we literally do an alchemical process called pyrolization, where we cook it with no oxygen. The only oxidative stress that the cellulose is in contact with is heat as an oxidator, not oxygen as an oxidator. And this gets super alchemical, is what Steve and I were talking about, is because oxygen is considered the sun. Well, it's kind of funny. The soil in and of itself, we've all heard that saying that, like, a farmer, after he plants the seed, he doesn't go dig up the seed every day to see if it's growing, right? The seed is in the darkness, it's in the womb. You can't see what's the growing, the underneath. Well, there's something with this pyrolization process, is where, like, the alchemical aspect of the sun, which is oxygen, isn't allowed in the process. So you're creating the dark matrix womb that's highly diamagnetic, so that will reflect away any of these millimeter waves, or so many of the return now grounds that they use in electrical. All of that gets reflected into oblivion in this highly diamagnetic material. And because it's so stable, it doesn't degrade like charcoal does. It doesn't oxidize anymore. Because once you start oxidative stress with two oxidators, then the oxidative process will go on ad infinitum. You can't stop it. It's
And you
not
get
that way with,
ignition. Stevie and I just had this talk. We did a talk on nuclear power plants.
yes,
We just had the same exact discussion, like the zirconium pellets and the yellow cake. It
yes,
allows heat can get through, but not light and fire and radiate. Like there's different bands of frequency.
right.
So this is what, and I said, like, that's exactly like Topher's biochar. Like
Yeah,
you're allowing heat to release, but not, it's not igniting. It's not lighting on fire. And it's not charcoal. People mistake biochar with charcoal because char and
right.
charcoal sound the same. But what's the difference between charcoal and biochar?
Charcoal, when they make it, they are usually just have open air pits. So your outside, atmosphere
So
is
the air is in there,
exposed.
so it's igniting.
So it's igniting. So whenever they do a charcoal pit, you end up with like maybe like 10, 12% of biochar at the very bottom, like where the oxygen couldn't actually get to. But most of the charcoal then becomes very hungry and it has a net positive charge. What makes biochar so special is it has a net negative charge. So they also call it activated carbon. Like when you go to the hospital, if you go to the hospital and say you're under toxic shock through your GI tract, they'll immediately give you activated carbon. That's biochar. They'll give that to you because it's a binder. It will actually absorb all of the positively charged things that are in your GI tract. And we call them, like, from a biological perspective, they call them reactive oxygen species. Whether you have a reactive oxygen species in your body, an ROS in your body, or you have that in your soil, neither of them are good because Schauberger would say they're extremely juvenile. It's like having Bam Bam from Flintstones. It's just in there, just wrecking shop. It's hitting everything. It's pulling the energy out of everything because it's just going through there and it's hyperactive. And Schauberger was hugely into using copper implements in the soil, cultivating the carbon in the soil because he was very into the mother, the womb matrix aspect of soil, and to not like ever expose the soil to extra oxygen because the whole thing I'm just talking about with the juvenile, what occurs from the juvenile experience, like the yeah, juvenile delinquents, man. You could just call when you have too much oxygen in anything, from an alchemical perspective, it's a degradation.
It
So
kind of
we
makes
what
sense because that's when you plant the seed, you stick it down like 3 inches in the soil where there's no oxygen.
right.
You don't stick it on the soil like, well, you can with like certain flowers, but like usually you plant it underneath.
Hmm.
So that totally makes sense. And the weird thing too with ionization, it's like, when the elites flip everything, they
Hmm.
call it negative ions. That's actually the good ones, and positive
Hmm.
are the bad ones. But
Right.
why didn't you call it the other way around then? Why are you calling the good ones negative and the bad ones positive? You know what I
Well, I
mean?
think I think it's once again like we started this whole conversation with. It's like you have to do your work and like define terms. Negative doesn't mean bad. It's just like, a, a, a
I see. It
somebody
just
that's
means minus. Negative means a deficit.
exactly
But in what though? I see what you're saying. In what? You have to define what.
right. And so it's just like, when you start, I've just been aware of this for a while. Like you really like if somebody is really earnest in knowing something, all this level of information will get to them. Because God gives to you if you ask. He just does. It's like, oh, you're sincerely asking. Okay, I'm before you even ask, I'm giving it to you. Like, here you go.
Ask and ye shall receive. As
Dude, it's never not been that way. What I've witnessed is a lot of people are quasi asking. They're asking not coming from a place of humility. They're asking to save face around the people around them or present a certain way. So they're really not asking at all. Their asking is more like a statement. No, you have to ask from your heart because you sincerely want to know the truth. And dude, there's not many people out there that are asking from that state of being of like really, they're willing to do a 180-degree turn. They're willing to like eat some crow when the truth shows itself. Like that's what asking is. Like you have to be humble because God will give it to you. He will give it to you. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of people that are asking, they already have the answer in their mind, so they're not asking to be. They're not asking.
Yeah, or there's like an ulterior motive or an impure reason for seeking it. A lot of it's the same with the mystery schools. The reason they vetted you is because they didn't want dickheads learning this information in the mystery schools because it's fucking dangerous in the wrong hands. You're learning metaphysical information that's really dangerous if you're out for power and greed
Right.
and money and control and all that crap. They used to vet you like, do we really want to tell this guy the secrets of the universe? Because he seems like a dickwad, like
Right.
he's not asking out of earnesty and humility. He's asking out of power hunger. And this is to me is the mystery schools all the way. That's why they give you the exoteric and the esoteric,
Hmm.
just to make sure, like, who are we dealing with here? Like, who's knocking? Knocking it shall be open, asking you receive. In the mystery school, druids were like, yeah, but who's knocking? Who's
Right.
asking? Like we got to make sure it's not. And unfortunately, that's what has happened is the cunts got a hold of the good information. They shouldn't have had it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of those things. Like I love the moniker of a naturalist because naturalists are alchemists. Alchemists are true seekers. And what I've seen with all naturalists, alchemists, and true seekers is they all actually venerate the creator. They're not doing it from a religious perspective. They're really coming from a place of gratitude. I've yet to meet an alchemist that isn't like absolutely full of gratitude.
And
Like abs
humble. Stevie Young's the most humble there is of all of them. Like he's so
he
humble.
yeah, he's a good dude. And so like what this is coming up in our pod last night in our live stream was like the most dangerous people out there are gammas because they're midwits and they're just smart enough to know that they're not smart. So they have information and data collection, and then their whole life becomes about protecting what they think they know. Well, guess what, dude? You live in the temporal realm, dude. It's all going bye-bye. If you're holding on to things that you think you know, and like on your deathbed, you're like, I know this. Ah.
Well, that's
Bye
why I think
bye.
like that's why I love when you told me about the chemtrails. I was like, Ross will be watching this later, like, but I'm like, okay, to me, learning all this in the mystery schools, it's been the most not humiliating. I guess humiliating is the
Humbling.
right word.
No. Yeah, yeah.
Humbling, but actually, humiliating is a good word. Again, we're afraid of humiliation, but what is humiliation? Is teaching you humility.
Right.
Again, they've said humiliation is the worst thing you can suffer. Actually, humiliation is the best thing you can suffer. It's like, I'm fucking wrong. And I'm
Right.
even getting shamed over it. So, like, instead of having a defense against it, just say, like, I'm fucking wrong. I need to
Yeah.
relook at this from a new level. So it's not actually, I think being humiliated is as good as humbling.
I think so. I mean, I love that. Life has shown me life is nothing but a humiliation process. Like I literally have learned from all my F ups. Like I literally have failed so much in life. But for whatever reason, I've been given the grace to like, pick myself back up and like, okay, learn from the mistake and go on. But like that's one of the beauties of having a little experience under your belt is like you're like, oh my God, you will survive your mess ups. What I noticed with a lot of midwits is that they're so scared to be wrong or they're so scared to mess up, or to be seen like they're messing up. And it's that fear, once again, fear is the mind killer. It never allows the real growth because humility, there's not a single person that I know that's humble where grace doesn't just befall them. I mean, did you say you were on mute?
No, I said, right. Yeah. Like, cause I'm a Virgo. What's your sign?
I'm Pisces.
All right. Yeah. So I'm a Virgo. So we're just full of ourselves. We're like so full of shit and confident. Like everything we say is right. You're fucking wrong. And the whole idea of learning the esoteric sciences is to get into the other 11 signs, incorporate them into yours so that you're not stuck as that.
Hmm.
So for me as a Virgo, it's even more humiliating or humbling to admit you're wrong, let alone even believe it, you know.
But
So
the
it's
nice thing about Virgo is you're mutable. So the
right.
beautiful thing about the Virgo is the element of earth is you're grounded, but it's mutable earth. So you will always be sensitive. And when you're always sensitive, that's probably why you're a good musician. You can't be a good musician unless you're sensitive, unless you're like listening, engaging, everything that's going on, right? And so you have that capacity to adjust. The sensitive people always have the capacity to adjust. The more some of the other signs out there, like say if you were fixed earth, like Taurus don't change.
That's
They
my
were there's
son, man. My son's like that too. But you're
they were
Pisces, right? So you're mutable too. You're a mutable Pisces, but you're
uh-huh.
water, so you're more flowing. You're very like I've seen you interview people like, "Oh, Nicole Murphy, set me straight. Thank you for putting me in my place." You know, I would
Yeah.
never thank anyone for putting me in my. I'm an Earth sign. I'm fucking fixed in the ground. I'm like, how fucking dare you? But I'm still willing to change.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
takes a little
yeah.
more. I'm not just so open about it as you are. I know what you mean. Yeah. But you're a Pisces. What's Mackenzie then?
She's a triple Pisces. I'm actually on the
Are
cusp.
you
I'm on the
both
cusp.
Pisces? Oh yeah,
I'm on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces. And I
yeah.
also do alchemical astrology, so I'm in my second epic. So actually in my second epic, I have a lot more Taurus that's actually being fulfilled at the moment.
So Mackenzie and you are Pisces, but you're a cuspy.
I'm a cuspy, but we both like I've been doing alchemical astrology for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And that's just like for people out there. I was first learning a system from John Lamb Lash, which was like Celestics. I took his course in 2010 through 2012, which was Real Sky Astrology. And then I got into Athen Commenti's work, which was like the true sidereal, because that reminded me of my Ayurvedic training in India. Because they changed everything. They like what I was learning in India in the early 2000s. There are 13 constellations along the plane ecliptic. And this is what you and I were talking about with Nicole Murphy. So there's the ground base, earth base looking up, which is tropical astrology, and then there's the astrology that's looking down. And I think they're both they both have their merits. What I really got into though was I started to see like people. I met some Koreans when I lived in Costa Rica that turned me on. It's like you ever hear something and it just like rings in you. You're like, oh, I had to like look at this more. And they were telling me that in Korea they consider your conception when you're conceived is like when you're born you're essentially like 10 months old, whatever, a year old. And I was like, whoa, that's true because I've met so many, pregnant hippie women that will tell me about their kid as the kid is gestating with them. And I could feel it myself working on them. I'm like, oh, this is a being. Like, why are we counting, the minute that they're born as zero? And so I was exposed to the Rosicrucian way of looking at it, of like calculating conception time and then running charts off of that. And the second I started doing that, everything shifted for me. And so I'm a weird bird because I do the conception astrology off of a true sidereal system, and then I map it to a light-based calendar. I don't even use like the Gregorian system. So like the way I look at things is pretty bespoke. in that way. But the nice thing is it gives me even more specificity, like when like when people are looking at profiling themselves psychologically, because that's all astrology is. It's an astral psychological profile. And so I call the service that I give in that regard, I call it a celestic profile because I am using the heavens based down approach, not the tropical approach. And I am mapping it to when they were conceived and not when they were born.
Well, I
And
think it's
that
all the same, man, isn't it? Because like Nicole Murphy's really hardcore into like tropical is the thing because tropical has nothing to do with the stars. It's a frequency range. No matter what stars are in the background on March 21st, the energy is Aries. You know what I mean? Like
well,
it
but that's so, and this is what we were discussing in our pod. That is terrestrial, that is mother, but we're a combination of Mother Earth and Father Sky. So from the sky looking down perspective is the constellational astrology. From the Mother Earth perspective, and here, absolutely true. What I'm saying is that is true. Tropical astrology does have its merit, and I understand it's not connected to the constellations. But the constellations, guess where we're getting our signaling from? We're getting it from up there. And the whole thing, and I always tell my clients this too, and I mainly do this for the people I do body work with, because the body work doesn't lie. Like the body never lies. And so we're in this realm. We're not of this realm. So you are right. You have a lower form and a lower thing that is totally tropical. And then you have the higher order aspect, your higher self that you brought up earlier, that's divine, it's astral. It's from coming down. That is the higher order aspect of yourself.
I got you, yeah. But it's like also when they say, you can do physical astrology where on based on tropical. Virgos have elongated heads. Quite often the males are bald. Like, you can see like a Pisces, they have fish eyes. Leos have these little lion eyes, like cat eyes looking shit. Like you
Mhm.
can see it.
Yeah,
But like you're saying,
physiognomy is a real thing.
it doesn't matter though. Like you're saying, even if you go back 9 months to gestation, you might call that a Virgo trait, but there's no reason it couldn't be whatever the fuck 9 months past Virgo is. What would that be? Would that be Sagittarius? I don't know. Something like that. but
What I'll do, what we should do is
I'd
like
love.
send me
Can you
your
give me a reading one day?
send me your birthday, yeah, and I'll do
Oh,
that for you.
I'd love. Yeah, Oh
That's
yeah.
the least I could do for you for everything that you've given me through the years.
Oh,
Like
I'd love a
that
reading, Topher. That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, I'll send you my birthday. Do you need like where and all that shit too, like
yeah,
normal
yeah, date of birth,
time?
time,
Yeah,
location.
I won't be showing it
Yeah,
on the public.
and
Yeah.
then if your mother's still alive, you could ask her if she's willing to divulge information if you were conceived in the same town that you were born in.
Yeah, great, man. And then for your biochar, yeah. So let's talk biochar. So your company's going great.
Yes, it is.
So it cleans water, it attracts healthy microbes, repels harmful radiation. So are you making the paint as well, or do you make like a mixture for paint?
We will. This by the end of the year, we're still experimenting. We have to get the right particulate size. There's tons of consideration. We're finding the smaller the particle, the much more powerful it is. So it's all about getting the grinders right, getting the humidity of the biochar right to like grind it down fine enough, and then not to kill the people that are doing it because it is, that gets into the air and it can be problematic to breathe in.
Why is
But there's
that
a
though? For why does it get stronger as it's smaller?
because it's like an infinite mirror. It just reflects and reflects and reflects. So millimeter waves are really small, and so whenever that pulse is moving through the the medium, whatever the medium is, that just one little deflection off of the particle. It'd be like imagine if you had like they're not spherical, but like each particle would almost act like a mirrored sphere and it'll just reflect. And so there's no way that the signal can the signal can have any strength through that. So we can have paint that's up to like I think because you do three coats of the paint, and then like if you have a room is a cube. It has six sides. It has a floor, a ceiling, and four walls. Most rooms. If you put three layers of this, on the surfaces, and then cover it, like say you like before you put your flooring in or your carpet or however you do your ceiling treatment, and you have the actual paint, you actually take like a copper wire and like run it to ground. There's no signal that gets through that.
Well, your phone signal will still get through, right? Or will it totally?
No,
Oh, you'll just have
no.
like a Faraday cage around your room.
Yeah, but it's a non-ferrous Faraday cage.
All right. Yeah.
So, they should call it a Faraday cage because I build with ferro cement. Like that's my claim to fame in construction. All my domes have ferro cement. So those are asymmetrical Faraday cages. That's like a different thing. It feels different too because that's working more on the principle of interference and not reflection. Reflection and interference are kind of different. They feel different to the body. So like if you're sending a signal and you're in a Faraday cage, you can almost feel like the signal is hovering around you. I know this is getting like really like
No,
this is
that's
like
cool.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
this is very fine detail. It's almost like if you were in a metal cage and somebody was running electricity into the cage, it might not be touching you, but you can kind of feel it in your biofield. That's not the way the biochar works. The biochar paint feels completely different. That signal never even it's I call it being reflected into infinity. It never like there's no notice of it even getting close to you. Like it doesn't.
But for all the people inside the dome, then their signals are locked and bounce back in again as too as well.
Yeah,
Then
yeah. So like if I'm doing EMF, mitigation for people, I'm like if you're in a Faraday cage and you have a phone in there, and like say you have low E windows that have silver iodide in them and things like that, it's more harmful to have the phone in that than in a standard
because it's
room.
locked in and can't bleed back out. Right. Yeah. Or
Right,
what about
right.
like if a negative person comes into your dome? Like if a dickhead
Well, it's
walks in
kind of
your
interesting with the dome shapes because now we're dealing with mass and shape. You don't really have like there's not really uncool people that like it's a very interesting phenomenon. Like I'm still doing consulting for people all around the world, like when it comes to shapes of what they're constructing and what materials to use. Um, there's a reason why like so many like sacred spaces are curvilinear, like so many spaces that are like just call it higher coherence or curvilinear. And it's because it's almost like it repels the square. Back in the day they said don't be a square, right?
so like a wankers will come to your house once and they won't want to come back again. They won't
They
like the
literally
vibe.
will make fun of it and they think they're above it. So again, the classic midwit gamma that's like, oh, I know. Go ahead and know somewhere else. Bye-bye.
Excellent, man. It's a douchebag repellent. I love it.
It really is. It really is.
That's
So
totally cool, man. Hey, is there
yeah.
anything we should get back to on the chemtrails and stuff? So, just to top off, like you're not denying that there's geoengineering and high altitude aerosol spraying, but the airplanes, most of the chemtrails we see are just real airplanes going through condensation and pollutants up there extra, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. The majority of what we see is, the classic contrail, but we have to know why we see more.
But it's
And
still it's still bad for us though, right? Like it's still reflecting the sun and stuff, or is it a good thing? I think we're in
no,
an
no,
ice age now.
the albedo effect is not good for us. But it's just like anybody can do the research. You look onto when you scrub a pollutant, you're just rarefying it. When you rarefy a particle, you're changing the shape and the size of a condensation nuclei. Condensation nuclei is what water agglomerates to. It's what it attaches itself to. So if you went from a microparticulate to a nanoparticulate, now your condensation nuclei get smaller and smaller and smaller, more rarefied. Your water particulates get smaller and smaller and more rarefied. And that's why we have this whitening effect going on everywhere. It's a combination of pollution. It's a combination of the terraforming. It's a combination of the geoengineering.
So are you
And the
saying if
reason,
they were bigger, we would have actual clouds and rain? We wouldn't have mist like a white
right,
albedo. We'd have actual big fucking dark clouds up there
r-
or something like that.
right. And it's been stated, like literally NASA has cloud producers. NASA has been, at least in the United States, has been upfront, like we're storing water in the sky. Like that's what we're doing now. And that's 20 years on. And when they say it to us in the public realm, it's been going on for,
That's
God
been
knows
going
how.
on since the 20s, probably. Yeah.
And guys, it's really simple. Like the people, like if the second water became a commodity and got commoditized, you don't think that they're not going to like have these shenanigans? So it's just about being defining terms and really talking in an educated way, like actually being like not the fear monger. It's not like we live in, the Industrial Revolution in London where like we have like ash falling on us like we're in the upside down. It's a little bit more refined, but we're still have tons and tons and tons of particulates falling on us. And it's still industry, it's still transportation that's doing it. And it's such like what a great redirect because you were in the insurance business. You know everything about liability shields. What a godsend to big industry and the car makers that they have all these like idiots out there going, chemtrails. They're like, liability shield.
It's
Yeah,
the
it's
airplanes, man. The train's doing nothing. Yeah, I got it. It's not the fucking trains, man. It's the airplane for sure.
Dude, I bet you there's some like very large transportation companies out there that, are paying some people very handsomely to say chemtrails. Dude, there's so many layers to everything.
So,
We
like,
have to
if
be
people want, go ahead. Sorry.
we just have to be very detailed when we say something. And just notice like when you go outside and you're looking, all you're experiencing is streaks in the sky. All the words in your head are just words that you've been told. So do experiments. That's why the scientific method says do experiments. I am coming from an educated perspective where I've done experiments and I'm an expert on Earth. Like I know I'm like dude, like how much like barium and strontium and all these things are naturally agglomerate to aluminum oxide,
That's
which
what
is
I was going to ask
red
you.
clay.
Like when what's his name, Dane Wigington. How much natural? I don't. I actually had to ask myself this after we talked. I don't know how much natural aluminum, barium, and strontium are in the soil. I have no fucking clue. They're just telling me there's a bunch in there. I don't know if it's in there anyway or not. I don't know. But what you're saying is if you're going to go to your state legislator in Ohio or Idaho or wherever, stop calling it chemtrails and say, I want an end to cloud seeding and high aerosol atmospheric spraying. You have to call it what it is if you want it to
Right.
stop. And even if they stop that, you're saying that regular airplanes flying through the right condensation and humidity amount up there are still going to be putting white mist in the sky even if you
Absolutely.
ban the aerosol spraying the commercial flights
Mhm.
and you're saying the high private jets up at 45, they're still going to be putting them in there not because they're spraying chemicals on you,
Right.
but because that's actually ice particles pretty much, right? Like
Yeah.
condensate. That's
All a
it.
person has to do is go down to like any body shop that paints cars after they've been in an accident and go over to their air compressor and ask the guy, "Oh, what's this little canister that's coming off your line right here?" And he'll go, "Oh, that's the water that pulls the water out of the air." What? Yeah, yeah, compressor is a condenser. Condensers pull water out of the air. We can't have water mixing with our paint. So if all these planes that we see in the sky are using compressed air, guess what they're spraying out the back? They're spraying out fine particulates of water. Fine particulates of water at 45,000 feet, where it's really fucking cold, turns to ice. What does ice look like? It looks like white little particles. So it's just like people just have to become, they just have to understand, like, let go of the fear, let your mind work a little bit. Understand, yes, there's pollutants. Pollutants are not good for us. But if you're going out there every day saying, "Oh, I'm being sprayed like a roach," but yet when you go out on certain days, you don't see any spraying. Well, they must have today off. It must be a holiday. No, the conditions are totally different. Use these things. Go to Jim Lee's website, look at all the things that, check out my live stream that I did with them. The live stream that has all of the things is why so serious, and it's spelled like serious clouds. And the whole, I thought that was cute. So, because he gives the four different websites that you can use, and you put the plugins and you see, and dude, I'm just telling you, for half a year, it's on the nose every time, like without fail. So